So often globally you realize that people are talking about democratic decline and democracy is declining globally, and Africa is not an exception. But I must state here, as you've rightly pointed out, there are some strong democracies on the continent that are examples to point to. The first I will start with just from the citizens themselves. So citizens across the African continent, when we ask them over and over again since 1999, we have had roughly 70% of the continent's population saying that they prefer democracy to any other form of government. And so in terms of democratic decline from the citizen side, we've seen that there's this solid commitment to democracy and the norms and institutions of democratic governance. So that's one solid area where citizens' commitment has not waned, at least not yet to the minority view. It's a majority view on the continent. But if I must point out clear examples of strong democracies on the continent, I'll go for maybe 5 to 7 countries. So starting with my own country, Ghana, that has been shown as a strong, resilient democracy. Then we have South Africa, Kenya, Zambia, Senegal, Botswana, and Mauritius. So these continue to be the very strong democracies on the continent, and I say they are strong democracies for a couple of reasons. First of all, for some countries, we have had the institutions of democratic governance really playing out when crisis mode was hitting those countries. So take the example of Malawi, Senegal, and Kenya. In these countries, we saw the judiciary, or the Constitutional Council in the case of Senegal, play out very strongly when elections were in dispute and they had to step in. So whenever politics is going down the drain, it is the judiciary that actually comes in to save the day. And so the judiciary in these 3 countries played that strong role, pushed against incumbent presidents, and restored democratic governance in those countries. And that also reinforced citizens' commitment to the institutions of democratic governance. The other critical player when it came to elections, like in Mauritius and in Botswana, as well as South Africa, it became clear that the electoral management body was a critical player. And so having a strong, independent electoral management body is a critical part of the democratic process. And in those countries, we saw citizens come out to vote in their numbers for change. So in Botswana, for the first time after almost 60 years, the incumbent party lost elections. The same way in Mauritius, after a very long time, the incumbent party lost. And in South Africa, for the first time, the African National Congress lost its majority in parliament. And this, of course, gave the electoral system, gave citizens the opportunity to choose their leaders and to change governments. And so in my view, when we talk about democratic decline, there are these examples and pockets of examples on the continent that gives us hope in the future of democratic governance. And the critical pillars of that hope are the judiciary, the electoral commissions, and civil society groups, which have played a very strong role, especially in Ghana and Senegal, to bring about the change that people really wanted. And so the examples I've just shared, these are not examples that would be relevant for only Africa. I think the strong democracies and the signals that we're getting from these democracies are useful for other countries as they begin to think about either restoring or developing their democracies. And building those pillars will be important. And the pillars being the judiciary, making sure that we have a truly independent judiciary that can step in if elections or politics is going south. Secondly, having a strong electoral management bodies that are independent enough to assert their own rights and be able to make decisions that are broadly accepted by the public. And civil society groups, I can't emphasize this enough, because some of the successes of these strong democracies has been driven largely by civil society groups that have been committed to the principles of democratic governance, and driven more by the fact that majority of the populations are in favor of the institutions of democratic norms and standards. And so as a result, having the backing of citizens, civil society has played a big role in making sure that now these our democracies thrive. And I think globally that should be the case, that we have these strong independent institutions and non-state actors working together to drive forward democracy.